I think we're living some really interesting times right now. We have just witnessed the biggest acquisition in video gaming history these past few days, and CD Projekt Red is also kicking off 2022 with their first virtual conference very soon, when we might finally get to find out more about their upcoming group strategy and possibly another DLC roadmap. So lots to talk about in this video. Now, I've noticed that only about a third of you guys who watch these videos are also subscribed to my channel, and you would do me a huge favor if you just press that subscribe button and activated all notifications. It just takes a second and you get to join one of the most awesome community of players on YouTube. Now let's get started with the event next month. Of course, CD Projekt Red has scheduled an upcoming virtual conference for next month on the 23rd. Of course, February is a month that we've talked about previously, when CD Projekt Red could jump in with an announcement followed by an update maybe in March, and it seems that it's kind of going that route. In 2021, they've done something similar with their group strategy update and how they would approach video game development for the year ahead. Like previously, one of the company's key goals was to change the way it develops games, enabling it to work on multiple AAA video games and expansions in parallel, starting with 2022. And now, since we're going steadily through the first quarter of 2022, I kind of want to see exactly how they're planning to do that, kind of get an update on what the future holds for the game and the company, and what their big plans for not just Cyberpunk 2077 but their other brands too would look like for the next year and forward. And I think we have a rough idea of how that's going to look out. It seems that CD Projekt Red will still heavily focus on their single player experience, but they would also branch out into some of that multiplayer online components. Previously, CD Projekt Red has announced that they would make further development of its brands and expansion of its expertise in areas of online gaming. Despite all of this, it's still highly unlikely that CD Projekt Red will make any jump into that multiplayer component anytime soon. Following the cancellation of the multiplayer standalone Cyberpunk game in spring of last year, the company's CEO has pretty much announced this. Let's stress this here: CD Projekt Red makes single-player story-driven AAA RPGs. That is not changing. What is changing is our long-term approach to online, and he further also mentions that we are building an online technology that can be seamlessly integrated into development of our future games. This technology will power online components we choose to introduce in our games. So it doesn't sound like CD Projekt Red is trying to create new standalone releases or multiplayer versions of their current lineup, as much as they're trying to create tools to implement in their future game development. It's unlikely these will even have an impact on their current games, including Cyberpunk, but likely something that could help them deploy new content, for example, more efficiently in their future games, or at the very least that's what I'm reading. Totally let me know down below what is your opinion on that. But as I've said, there's now calls for another roadmap. Fans of course are dying with anticipation, waiting for at least some news from CD Projekt Red on content updates for Cyberpunk. It's quite funny that we're so far into the first quarter of 2022 and CD Projekt Red has yet to give any concrete dates on even its next gen update, which from all accounts seems to still be on schedule for the delayed roadmap, so still the end of the first quarter of 2022. Another big one is of course the first paid DLC expansion, which we actually do know that is in the works, and there's quite a number of teams already allocated to it, because CD Projekt Red has kind of already announced it officially back in summer of 2021. So there's also calls for that, at least a time window or a rough estimate for when that is planned, as well as at least some dates for future free DLCs and content drops that we do know that CD Projekt Red is already planning. Now my question to you guys is, well, will another roadmap later down the line help us in any way? Because we already burned through 3 of them that CD Projekt Red themselves had to change constantly because they couldn't stick to the plan. So I'm not sure exactly how a 4th one would help, maybe with the exception of helping them in terms of appeasing their own shareholders, because those roadmaps right there weren't for the fan base. They were more for people who had invested interest in the company, and I mean that in monetary values. So all in all, I'm not sure exactly how I feel about this. Of course, totally let me know down below what is your opinion. Yes, it would be nice to know exactly what they are planning for 2022, but if they can't stick to that, what's the point of it all? personally, I would prefer something a bit more specific, like a certain area of the game that they are working on improving, or maybe a new feature that they thought about, or maybe a part of the story that they thought about expanding upon, rather than some nice graphics with some really generic text on them that doesn't really tell me anything. But again, totally let me know down below in the comments what's your opinion. Now, speaking of improvements, in a twist of irony, another high rank at CD Projekt Red is leaving the company in the span of just a few weeks. This time around, it's the quality manager that made a public statement about their departure from the company after spending more than 11 years working at it. From their Twitter post, it seems that this was their own decision, so it's not like CD Projekt Red is cutting heads left and right, trying to shift the blame. I think it's way past that at this point, but it's surprising to see that there's so many people in high position at CD Projekt Red that are constantly leaving the company, and this again is not the first occasion. Which also brings us to number 4. Despite Cyberpunk 2077 being the newer game, being way more hyped, selling more units most likely, it has a bigger problem that is more evident the more you put it into perspective and compare some numbers, because compared to CDPR's previous game, Witcher 3, the game doesn't even seem to catch up as much, neither in terms of positive reviews, neither in terms of retaining daily players. Like, I'm still quite shocked that after so many years, Witcher 3 can still boast with over 40,000 daily concurrent, when Cyberpunk 2077 can't hold a third of that just a year after its release. It just goes to show you how different these games are on a scale of quality and player retention, and we're still talking about the same company. So such a shame. Hopefully at some point Cyberpunk 2077 can be talked about in a same light as Witcher 3 is nowadays. And on a final note, we had a pretty shocking update this week when Microsoft decided to outright just buy the entirety of Activision Blizzard for what is likely the biggest acquisition in gaming history by a large margin. It even dwarfs that 7.5 billion that they've used to acquire Bethesda, which was already a really massive deal. But of course, it just shows you what a different ballpark it is in terms of these two companies, with Activision Blizzard also having that mobile gaming going on that brings in a lot of its profits. But of course, it's not just about big numbers. I mean, look at the value that Sony got out of Insomniac, that's now developing like 3 Marvel games, with the 2 previous ones already setting a really high bar for game development. So let's be honest here, Sony and Microsoft are right now in a shadow war, so to speak. They aren't outright going at each other's throats, but it's clear that Microsoft doesn't want to let them have the lead again how they did in the past gen. It's quite clear that both Sony and Microsoft are going through a consolidation phase right now, trying to acquire as many big IPs and AAA developers as they can under their belt. And for now, it doesn't seem to hurt us, the end consumers. Like, I don't think we're going back at more exclusivity as it was the case in the past. Even Sony is leaning more and more into PC releases, with some of their biggest names like Horizon Zero Dawn and even recently God of War making their way to the PC platform. And looking at the market cap of CD Projekt Red, it's actually doing quite well in the past year despite everything that's been happening. But the question now remains is, hypothetically speaking, if CD Projekt Red were to be bought tomorrow, which one of these two companies would buy it outright? Because looking at its past relationship with Sony, I think that that relationship has been tarnished, or at the very least affected in a way or another, as a result of the game being pulled out completely from the PlayStation platform altogether. Meanwhile, yeah, Microsoft has kept the game going on their platform from last I checked, so I think that there's a better footing over there for an acquisition if it were to happen. So it would be interesting to see CD Projekt Red and like specifically the Witcher series and well, future Cyberpunk series, I assume, under the Microsoft Studios belt, and how that would shift the balance for the next gen or maybe even the current gen. This is it though. Thanks so much for watching. As always, totally let me know down below what is your opinion on all of this, and I'll see you guys in the next video.